Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Armed Forces Week Meets into Rail. Today we've got myself, Lee Payne, Lewis Matthews, Karl and Simon. Just a little bit about the Armed Forces sort of interrail side of things. We want to kind of bridge the gap between armed forces and people joining the rail industry. So Lewis and I have now got new roles, so we're becoming the Armed Forces Engagement Leads. Fee, if you could just go on to the next slide, please. So Lewis and I are going to be the new Armed Forces Engagement Leads, trying to help bridge that gap. So my background, I'm an ex-infantry lance corporal for 2nd Battalion Princess of Wales Royal Regiment, and I'm now currently working as a scheme project manager at Network Rail, for testing, commissioning, signalling projects. So my area covers the southern and western region. And Lewis, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Lee. And I saw a couple of the smiles there, one from Karl when them pictures come up, and I'm guessing it was that cheeky smile that you like in there. So thanks for that, Lee. So yeah, my name's Lewis Matthews. I served 13.5 years in the Royal Engineers. I got to the rank of sergeant, various deployments, and a really great career. And the reason I left was to have a more stable life for me and my family. So fast forwarding to November 19, I handed in my notice to leave, and then I left and started a career with Network Rail in November 20. I'm now working for Network Rail as a workforce health, safety and environmental advisor at London Bridge Delivery Unit, and we look after the Kent region, and we specialise in maintenance works. So a very varied job role, lots of opportunity to do office-based stuff and rub shoulders with the exec team, but then to be on the ground with the guys as well and bridge that gap in between. Really rewarding, lots of opportunity for engagement, and I'm looking forward to going out on a site visit tomorrow. So that's a little bit about me. I'm going to pass you on to Karl Gilmore.
Thanks, Lewis and Lee. My name's Karl Gilmore. I'm the Rail Infrastructure Director at Transport for Wales and also the Armed Forces Champion there. I'm responsible for the South Wales Metro delivery and a number of other infrastructure projects on behalf of Welsh Government. Are we just doing intros now, gents, or do you want us to dive into our more formative years?
We do a small introduction for Simon as well, and then we'll go into that. That's fine.
Hi, thanks guys. Simon Higgens. I joined the army as a 16-year-old apprentice, did 30 years and left as a lieutenant colonel in the Royal Engineers, and I've been out now for 9 years, and I'm currently the business development director for Story Contracting, which is a civil engineering business in the rail industry. Thanks, Lee.
No worries. Yeah, just to touch on just back on my story. So when I got out, I actually went and done the rolling stock course that NTAR have to offer, just out of interest to anyone that's seen that on the CTP website. So when I went to do the Step Into Rail event in 2017, that was the first event they'd done, and I was fortunate enough to get that as a freebie, if you like. So that's about £5 course, I think, off the top of my head. And I was able to network and get that as a freebie. So just the power of networking alone in your resettlement period is vital, and just goes to show you can get things free, if you like, if you're lucky enough as well at the right time. So I mean, I've done that course, brilliant course, recommend it. Anyone that wants to go into rolling stock maintenance. Before I sort of joined Network Rail, I was also working at Southern Rail as a assistant engineer when I left, and then I went on to become a service engineer at Brighton Depot, doing a bit more bit more maintenance, getting a bit more stuck in. So if anyone's got any questions on that later on, for anyone looking at that sort of career path as well as maybe project management, my side, don't be afraid to ask those questions. So I think it's probably good to get into careers to date for Karl. So if you could just sort of elaborate on your sort of journey from the forces, and then your sort of resettlement period, and then on to kind of where you are now and how you've got there.
Yeah, certainly, no problem. I guess my more formative years started quite early on, as 12 years old, as getting into the Army Cadet Force, which I've got to say, being a relative delinquent oik from the Midlands, it was the best thing for me to try and have a bit of discipline at that early age. I was never an academic, and certainly still not now. So as soon as the opportunity came to join the Army at 16 as an apprentice, that's what I did. So I joined a REME as a Army apprentice tradesman at 16 when I was just the end of 17th birthday, actually, 97. And I spent my time down at Arborfield, which basic was fantastic, really enjoyed it, and I certainly flourished as a boy soldier and as a young lad. And came out of that as an apprentice tradesman sergeant, which I thought was the bee's knees, but in reality, as soon as I went over the road to Arborfield, it transpired I was a private soldier and nothing, and started again from fresh. But it's a fantastic journey. From there, like all these things, as soon as you start to grow up and then you come out of trade training, you discover the delights of your local town. So for me, it was Reading and the likes of, I had to look them up early, RG1s, Utopias and Applejacks for those who remember Reading in your earlier more formative days. But at that point, I really did home down that maths wasn't going to be my strength. So at that point, I had to leave the REME and I transferred across to the RLC, or some of you refer to the really large corps. And voidly narrowing, becoming an assault pioneer, which if you've ever read the job description, it sounds fantastic even to this day. But I settled as being a movement controller. And actually 14 years later, oh, come on, Simon, everyone needs messing about a little bit. And come 14 years later, very much for the same reason Lewis mentioned, I left because I started to create a family, first child on the way. I deployed a lot by that point, as I'm sure a lot of you had, and I've seen so many people walking back rather somber from the welfare phones, and I thought I don't really want part of that. And if I leave now at this point, I'm going to try and create myself a new career. So I left as a warrant officer class 2. In terms of resettlement, I did the career transition workshop down in Chepstow. And that was a bit of an eye-opener for me, to be honest. When someone in the room asks you what you are, I generally didn't have a clue. So I went through and described what I did, which of course, for those who know movers, you'll kind of get people off the bus and off and mess them about a little bit, cancel planes. And they said, well, you're a project manager. And I genuinely didn't know that. And of course, at that point, I was kind of 30 years old, and you would have thought I would have had an idea. So I went home and I simply Googled project management Bristol just to see what the first jobs which came up. And the first job was rail. And it's for an assistant production manager working on track renewals. And very fortunately, the person who was interviewing for that was an ex-captain Royal Engineer by the name of Martin Wright. And to be honest, if it wasn't for that transition, and him knowing he's got a relatively known quantity, and actually he can teach me absolutely anything he wants, and likely it is I'll pick it up and I'll work really hard for him, I probably wouldn't have got that job. So there's probably a few things to pick up on there in terms of my transition from leaving the army, because I was one of these which was working to the dying day and didn't really do any resettlement because I didn't really know how. I didn't know who to reach out to. I didn't really have anyone to steer me. So from that perspective, I went into leaving the army pretty blind, unfortunately. So from that point, I was in track renewals for a couple of years, which was an absolutely fantastic start. Really enjoyed myself and managed to get promoted a couple of times while I was in that role. I then left and joined a minor civils company for a couple of years. Went across to Network Rail as a scheme project manager yourself, Lee. Project manager, program manager, and senior program manager by the time I left there, delivering bridges and part of the electrification project as the Great Western Electrification. And then 3 years ago, almost to the day, I joined Transport for Wales in my current role. So that's a brief synopsis.
Sorry. So, was there any qualifications or anything that you did in your resettlement period that you could sort of say that stood out or helped you out towards that, stepping into a rail industry role?
There wasn't, but in hindsight, I really wish there had been certain things I'd done. So to answer your first question, what course did I do? I had lots of trees which needed chopping down in my garden, so I did a chainsaw course. But had I been slightly more thought through, actually, and some of the advice I'm giving people now is some of the more basic project management courses. So APM, I think, is certainly overtaken Prince 2, albeit I'd done Prince 2 in sort of earlier years. There's quite a few people interested in going down the NEBOSH route, which again is a really solid qualification. There's lots of other weird and wonderful courses out there, but actually I think in terms of core understanding of project management, if that's the route you want to go down, in terms of governance, commercial, change management, actually APM is a really solid grounding, and I'd really recommend that for people.
I agree with that, because I've done the APM course myself when I got out, because I needed to spend the money on something. So I've done APM change management. Sorry, yeah, I think it's APM change management, and I've done APM PMQ. Really hard courses, but what I found was I had a lot of project management experience, even as a Lance Jack, but I didn't know the lingo, stakeholder, and so it was kind of building that kind of terminology up that made that a little bit difficult for me personally. But it was only when I got out and started working at GTR as a train maintenance, I started to believe in myself that I could do that role. I just built up more kind of like more what's the word? I'm trying to think the word I'm looking for now. Just more confidence, I think, that I could do that. Whereas when I first got out, I was like, then I don't have that, and I think we're quite good as service leavers actually to put ourselves down and not realise all that training is naturally there, whether you like it or not. You are. It's only when you sit down, for example, and go.
We lost you for a sec, Lee. You've gone on mute.
I'll go and grab my mobile.
You can really tailor things back. Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're back in the game.
So I lost you for a minute there. Sorry.
You picked up on a really interesting point there, Lee, and I haven't come across many service leavers, or indeed people who are serving who are great advocates of really standing up and sort of bigging themselves up. But the one thing I would say I'm a particular advocate for is someone who's I'm trying really hard day to day to do well and try and better myself. But I really have come from a point of having very little qualification which to fall upon. So I've got some GCSEs which are rather basic. They're not fantastic. No A levels and no degree. So I'm certainly not saying that having zero qualification is the way forward. Clearly, it's certainly a door opener, but it's not the be all or end all. And the one thing I'm trying to change, and I try to influence this a little bit in Network Rail, and I've had more success in Transport for Wales, is actually when I'm looking for an assistant project manager, program manager. Actually, yes, you know what? In terms of desirable, it's great to have a degree in X, Y, and Z, but actually having some demonstrable experience in industry or indeed working towards a certain qualification such as APM or Prince 2, actually, you know what? That gets your foot through the door for me, because once you've got to that point, if you've got the right willingness and the right attitude, actually you can be taught anything. Because I've been taught everything. Well, I say everything I need to know. I've been taught what I need to know to get to this point without having those qualifications. So if there's people on the call which, let's say, haven't got that background, please don't let it put you off.
Yeah, I agree.
I think this is a good time for me to come in, Karl, and it's really refreshing to hear you say that. And I'd just like to let you know a little bit of kind of how I got into my role. So I applied for an assistant project manager position. I had Prince 2 and change management under my belt at that time. Absolutely smashed the interview. It was a successful interview. Didn't get offered the role, but at the end of that phone call, I was actually in a stronger position, which I was like, how can this happen? And they said, we actually want you to go forward for the workforce health and safety advisor job at London Bridge. And I'd already disregarded that job role because in the essential box, they wanted NEBOSH. I didn't have NEBOSH. I didn't even have IOSH at that point. And I went to interview and I got the job. And if you would have told me on my first CTP resettlement course that I would have went for a job at London Bridge Delivery Unit with no NEBOSH qualifications and got that job role, I would have laughed at you. So it just shows that our other qualities shine through. And we've got so many transferable skills and soft skills and interpersonal skills and experiences within our trade streams within the military. And it is most definitely sought after by industry, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. I'm conscious not to capitalise the time too much. And I know Simon's definitely going to have some views on quite a bit of this. But it'd be good to circle back at some point, Lee and Lewis, about what some of the organisations out there are doing to try and help that transition from rail, from military into rail, but maybe we can come back to that.
Yeah, definitely. So, Simon, do you want to also give your career today, and then we can sort of summarise with a few questions and sure. Maybe have a bit of a chat all between us, just to kind of just get as much info out to these guys that are on the call and people that will watch this afterwards.
Absolutely. Just one thing, W2 at 30, Karl, blooming Ada. At 30, you were a warrant officer.
Well, it would have been just before. I think it's 28, actually.
And you're a mover, so no one likes you, so it doesn't really matter. So you're a mover. I'm just conscious that there's 4 Pongos on this panel at the moment, and we are inclusive of Royal Navy, Royal Marines, and even the RAF. So let's this is, even though it's Pongos, this applies to anybody in the military, regardless of service, cap badge, trade, branch, or whatever. As I said at the beginning, I joined at 16, a bit like Karl. I did 10 years, couldn't hack it, and then became a Rodney. But my point is, I was a Royal Engineer, but I wasn't an engineer I wasn't an engineer graduate. I was just a scrote that fell into the army, and the army picked me up and trained me and delivered me out 30 years later with a bit of an education. But like Karl, like Lewis, like Lee, we're all good generalists, and we don't know how good we are at being generally good at stuff. We're good at most things, expertise in a few things, or experts in a few things, but we're good generalists, and more on that later. But my career was my career. I've done stuff that you've all done, but there's nothing special in there or different. But I really was a dedicated soldier for 30 years. But some nuggets on resettlement first, if I may, Lee. Some nuggets on resettlement, which Karl has touched on. Because my resettlement, I treat it with disdain. I had a job of sorts to go to, so I really didn't pay it much attention. And because I thought I was the best thing since sliced bread, I didn't think the army could survive without me. So I didn't really do resettlement, because how on earth would the army survive for 6 months without me looking after myself? Wrong. Absolutely wrong. It is the only time really in your military career that you must be selfish. You must be absolutely selfish with your resettlement. Without a shadow of a doubt, you take everything that the military gives to you, the leave, the training, the money, the courses, you absolutely do everything. Now, if you've done 37 years or you've done the minimum to qualify for resettlement, you absolutely use it. Please do not think that the RAF, the Royal Navy or the Army will fail without you. It won't. You'll be forgotten as soon as you leave. So do make the most of your resettlement. You've heard about APM, you've heard about Prince 2, IOSH. But also the CTP offer great things called work placements. Work placements, you can do 2 to 6 weeks, I think, with a company. You get paid by the military. The company loves you because you're doing work for free. And there's a great way to network and get into an industry by doing a work placement. So look at work placements. Enhanced learning credits, use them. Even if it's for something, I wish I did a coach driver's course, because when I retire, I want to drive coaches. Now I'm going to have to pay for it myself. Do that sort of thing, make the most of it, and go to recruitment events. Industry and CTP put on loads of recruitment events. Go to them. If it's virtual or real, go there and just make the most of everything. Companies who are hoovering up service leavers, make the most of everything that they're throwing your way. And we did one recently in the Midlands called Military is Good for Rail. There were 25 rail companies there, 150 service leavers signed up, and pounds to a pinch of salt, I bet everyone got 3 follow-up emails saying, can you please put your CV in? So things like that you must do. Networking. Again, I always can tell when someone's leaving the military, because all of a sudden they appear on LinkedIn and they start hoovering up contacts on LinkedIn. So there's a good combat indicator, but it's a useful tool. Lee Payne and Lewis Matthews, they were all over my LinkedIn timeline saying, I'm loving this, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. It was, oh my Lord, I had enough of it. But they were fantastic at selling themselves on LinkedIn. They were tarts on LinkedIn, and that is exactly what you need to be doing. You need to be selling yourself. You need to be doing positive messages. I mean, the followers they've got on LinkedIn in the rail industry is sickening, but it worked. An infantryman's got a job in the railways. He's thick as mince, but he's brilliant. That's what you need to do. And I'm only kidding, Lee, you're not. I love you really. So sell yourself on LinkedIn. Your profile, you need to make the most of that tool. On LinkedIn, you need to follow companies that you're interested in, be it railway or not railway. But if you're looking at railway industries, look at those companies. Follow them and start learning about them. And there's the old boys network. Start using your regimental, your cap badge, your Royal Air Force associational links. They're in there. That's how I got my job. I put my CV into the Royal Engineers Old Boy Network. An old brigadier working in Babcock saw my CV, put it into the rail business and said, here, you could use him. So that's how I fell into the rail industry, and more about that in a second. Your CV gets you a chance. If you put in there that you've done lots of military stuff and you use military language, people don't understand it. People don't understand it. So you need to civilianize your CV. Be a bit economical with your experience. Sell yourself. Use words which people know. So don't use squadron section commander or flight sergeant. Use program manager, senior program manager, a commercial manager. So use words that people who haven't been in the military will understand. And it may be worthwhile paying a bit of money or using Lee and Lewis to have a look at them first. So just civilianize your CVs and exploit links. My CV is somewhere on here, and if you want to speak to me and say, can I come and work in your company, Simon, then send me an email. So exploit links and opportunities like this. Hoover up links. Follow me on LinkedIn, Karl on LinkedIn. We may not be able to help, but we can push you. And I've placed about 30 people since I've left the army into the railway industry. So exploit those links. 80% of jobs are not advertised. They are done through internal recruitment or through who you know. So you need to understand that, and by going to recruitment events and looking at making contacts and exploiting that will really help you. So some pointers there on resettlement. I don't know if some of you have left or are leaving or are thinking about it. Really, if you are leaving or thinking about leaving, resettlement is key. And if you remember anything, be selfish. Right, the railway. The railway's great, I love it. But the railway isn't just train drivers and Network Rail, it's train and freight operating companies, it's rolling stock manufacturers, it's the supply chain in all of those industries, it's the train cleaning companies, it's SMEs. There's something like 1 million people work in the rail industry. But when you think rail, don't just think train driver or Lee and Lewis in oranges walking up and down the platform. It's more than that. It is that, but it's a lot more than that. It's a very, very broad church. And the thing about being in the military, every trade of the military is in the railway. And so there's a direct read across. If you're an Army Air Corps pilot, you can fly the Network Rail helicopter. If you're a baker in the Royal Navy, you can break loaves of bread in the catering industry, in the railway industry. If you're a doctor in the Royal Air Force, you can be a doctor or an occupational health person or a physio in the rail industry. There is a direct read across for skills and for training. So don't please just think train driver and men in oranges. When I first, have I got a couple more minutes, Lee, because I am babbling on?
Crack on. We've got quite a while yet, so you keep going.
When I left the army, I fell into the railways, and for the first month or so, I apologised to all the old and bold people in Babcock, because it was Babcock then who I was working for, and I apologised and say, sorry, I don't know anything about railways. And a bloke grabbed me. He said, you do know about the railways. He said the railways is very much people orientated, it's heavy metal and it's dangerous. And guess what the army is? It's people, it's heavy metal and it's dangerous. But the only thing that's changed is the dangerous environment. Here on the railway, it's on the forefoot, the bit between the two bits of rail. In the military, obviously it's where we've operated. So there is quite a strong read across in in roles, but also in thinking and mentality and the way people operate in the railway industry. I felt very much at home, and it's quite an easy move. Now, obviously, you're in green, light blue, or blue in the military. In the railway industry, you tend to be in oranges, and the only thing that's changed is the logo on your oranges. So it's very much a family feel to it. And once you're in the railway industry, you tend to stay in and not move, but move out of the industry. I was into the fell into the railways by chance, very much like I fell into the army 30 odd years previously. I very much left it to chance. The second point here is, don't leave it to chance. Be selfish for resettlement. Do not leave the railways to chance. There are more jobs in the railways for work than there are for people to deliver it. There is not enough people in the railway industry at the moment, and when HS2 kicks off, another large major projects like Transpennine and East West Railways come in, there will be tens of thousands of jobs available and billions of pounds to be pumped into it. It's a boom industry. It'll be secure for 30 odd years, and there are not enough people to do the work. So don't leave it to chance. Start targeting now. In Civvy Street and in definitely in the rail, rank counts for nothing. The fact that I was a half colonel when I left, and the fact that Lee was a lance jack when he left, counts for absolutely nothing. I know a lance jack who was running a high speed, and he was an infantryman as well, Lee. I know an old Queen's Regiment lance corporal who is now heading up a high speed project in India. He had the skills, the quality, and he was a bit of a bullshitter, but he got the job, and he's over there now delivering a cracking job. So rank counts for nothing in Civvy Street. So do not think because you're an aircraftsman, or because you're a rating, or because you're a lance corporal or a private or a sapper or a trooper, that it restricts you and you have to go to that certain job. It does not. It does not. It may be a little bit harder, but as Lee and Lewis have proved, they are equals to me and Karl, and have an equal career ahead of them. So do not think that that your current rank stereotypes and pigeonholes you going forward. When you leave the military, what we used to do in the military is, and what you do in the military currently, is you go to a new job and everyone expects you to pick up that job like that and hit the ground running within 2 weeks. In Civvy Street, that's not the case. People do allow you time to learn your job. They do allow you time to make mistakes, learn from them, and people will leave you alone to develop your own special way in the business that you're working for. So do not think that you have to leave the military one day, the next day, if you do work in the rail industry, to be performing. It's not like that. You're given time to learn, you're trained, you're inducted, and you're given some breathing space. Commercial acumen. People will say, you military types, you don't know anything about commerce or anything like that. Well, you all do. Believe it or not, commerce is just another word for tactics. Commerce, in my side of the resettlement line, is how to beat your competitor at winning work, how to make a better margin or more of a margin, how to be profitable, how to save money. And that's just tactical now. So it's how can we be better than our competitor? How can we improve our services to the clients? And how can we be more efficient? So that is really tactics. It's either fighting a submarine, fighting a plane, or fighting a tank. It's how can you get one over on the enemy? And in this case, the enemy is the client. So really, that's how. So when someone says you haven't got commercial acumen, you haven't got it in civilian speak, but you've got nous, how to get one up, and that really is commercial acumen. And one more thing, then I'll catch breath. I know. In the rail industry, and it's light rail and heavy rail, I know a corporal from the RCT who's running Edinburgh Trams. He's managing director of Edinburgh Trams. I know a petty officer, HMS Iron Duke, I think he was, is a train driver now for Freightliner. I know a corporal who's a board director of a large train operating company, and he's running one of the main train companies that you will be aware of. I've mentioned my mate, the last corporal in the Queen's, who's India High Speed, and there's a flight sergeant who's just left from the RAF, who's now very senior in a digital comms position in Siemens. And that's just a quick few that I've remembered. So really, a whistle-stop tour there about the railway industry. If you want to join an organisation that's similar to where you're coming from, then the railways is not a bad punt. There's lots of money there, there's lots of jobs there, and there's lots of people like Lee, Lewis and Karl who will help you get a leg up in the industry. But once you're in, I promise you'll stay in.
Simon, can I pick up on a couple of points you said there? I don't disagree with anything you said. It's all 100% bang on. You mentioned CV very briefly there, and Lewis did earlier. Please do not. I mean, feel free if you want to do it, but I really wouldn't waste your time or your money. Do not send your CV off to a professional CV writer. It doesn't matter how poor you think your CV is, because you haven't had to write one before, and actually, not many of us did. The first time I wrote a CV is in the career transition workshop. There was no requirement before that. Please just reach out to someone, reach out to one of your friends, your family, colleagues, any of us on the call. I'd probably help review probably 3 or 4 CVs a month, I would have thought. And you know what, it doesn't matter whether I know people or not, people reach out on LinkedIn and just ask for a bit of help, and that's what it's all about. So please pay someone, send it to someone who reviews CVs all the time, because they're recruiting and trying to get people through the door. One of the points which may be worth picking up on, and I don't think any of you have said it just yet, is that fear of leaving. So I recall, well, I don't know what the system is now, but if I look at JPA, which had only just kind of come in by the time I left, and there's 7 clicks to freedom, I don't know whether it's the same or whether it's slightly different. But then all of a sudden, it was 12 months, and it's a 12-month spiral. So as soon as I clicked the button, I had that refreshment of, wow, I've done it, I've empowered myself. And I automatically had that downward spiral of, oh my God, I've got a mortgage, I've got bills, I've got a family on the way, what on earth am I going to do? So I recall phoning one of the first recruitment, forces-centric recruitment agencies. I'm not going to mention any names. And I remember to this day, because I'm still in contact with the individual, he remembers we had this conversation, and it kind of went a bit like this. He said,
we lost him.
Yeah, I think so.
Hold firm.
Just while we're waiting for him to come back in, completely echo that, and for everyone that's sitting in the attendees room.
I signed on.
Oh, is he back in?
I think he's still working it out. Go on, let's continue.
Cool. John Stevenson from the Forces Transition Group is doing fantastic stuff with service leavers. He does free CV reviews, and if you're not linked in with him on LinkedIn, make sure you get on there after this and definitely do that, because he's fantastic.
Oh, Carl's back in the room.
Carl, I was just filling the void while you had the technical difficulties. Back to you.
Sorry, mate. No, I was basically saying in a roundabout way, I found a recruitment agency. They found out I had 12 months left, and much to my absolute horror, he said, "Don't call me now. Call me back in 8 months' time." And it sent me in a flat spin. Please don't be in that situation. You will apply for roles. You may be successful. You may not be first time round. Don't get in a spiral. Have that confidence, and just keep on fighting through. That was the worst bit of advice I'd ever received from someone who was actually there to try and help transition people from the military. He's like, don't phone me back until you've got a couple of months left to go. That's not the case. As Simon quite rightly picked up on, there's a lot of organisations out there which will have you through CTP or directly into the organisation for 1 or 2 weeks work experience. And not only is that a good opportunity to say, if I look at my sector, do I actually want to work in the public body? Well, actually, if you don't, well, you've learned something, even if you don't transition and join the public sector. So there's lots of those opportunities out there.
Yeah, I as well. Experience actually across Siemens through networking. Got some work experience at their Three Bridges depot on the Class 700 trains, because I knew with the rolling stock course that I'd done at NTAR, I had nothing else really to support it. So a couple of days night shifts just supported that kind of that experience on top of the qualification, and then off the back of that, I applied for a job with them. Due to experience, didn't get the role, but then went to GTR, and they waited 6 months for me. Once they accepted, they waited for me 6 months to finish and then to join. So companies will wait for you if you're the right candidate. they held on for 6 months. So it can be achieved. And by that point, I was thinking, what do I do for the rest of my resettlement? You know, I've done everything in 6 months through pure networking from start to finish. And just to echo what that meant is that I was an infantry lance corporal with no qualifications, went through 6 months worth of resettlement, and I'd already completed it, and had a job secure after being told that I wouldn't get a job in rolling stock because I had no level 3 in engineering. So through networking and getting that role, and you know, off the back of that, I ended up kind of securing a role in 6 months I was told wouldn't happen. So, you know, I suppose what I'm trying to get is if you value yourself in a certain area, you think you can do something, the only person that's stopping you from getting there is yourself and the commitment that you're going to put into that resettlement period. I was fortunate enough to have really good officers actually at the time, a lieutenant colonel and a major, that supported me to take the 4 weeks off to do the NTAR training that I got for free. I told them about the opportunity and they supported me in every second of it. So I was really fortunate with that. But I think another bit of advice that I would give is know what you're entitled to in that period, and being selfish. You know, like say, it's not going to run without you. They can run without you. That's the thing, isn't it? They can run without you, and I think people try and get every bit of work out of you until the end of your resettlement period. So yeah, that for me is, I think that's just knowing what you're entitled to and what they should be allowing you to do, rather than saying, oh, you know, you can start your resettlement period in 6 months' time, and then you've got 6 months to sort of sort yourself out. I think that's wrong. But I don't know how you guys have found that experience yourself, whether you had anything similar or Lewis.
Yeah, I was actually working with Lee at Purbright. We were both transport planners when he went through his resettlement. That's where we met. And I remember Frosty coming into me, the QM, and saying, Lou, you'll feel pain his gut when he goes on his course. And I was like, of course I will, sir. You know what I mean? And I just cracked on and I've done double the work for the month. But to be fair, Lee didn't really do much anyway when we were there. So it weren't a big change. No, but Lee is I love listening to Lee's story. It's so inspiring. You know, I've always had an eye on the eye industry, being in the Royal Engineers, but watching Lee go through his resettlement and what he achieved, it was inspirational. And at that point, I didn't realise he was actually planting a seed in me as well, to follow that path. And Lee gave me the basic fundamentals of how to do resettlement correctly, and I kind of ran with that and then spun off it and put my own spin on it as well. So in terms of people trying to put barriers up for you, like, you just need to know your rights and know what exactly is you're entitled to. And like it's already been said, you've got to be selfish. Go to the IERO, speak to the people that are in the know that are going to back you as well. You haven't got to be sly about it, like going behind your boss's back, but just say to them very clearly, like, I have got entitlements, and if you're not going to support me, I will take this to different chains of command, and I will get what I'm entitled to. Because if you don't use it, you will lose it at the end of the day, and then it's gone then, and you've missed an opportunity. But some of the stuff that's been said is just absolutely fantastic from both Karl and Simon and Lee. But one of the such a simple thing is self-belief, resilience, and positivity. And if you've got all of that in resettlement, and you're ambitious and you're going to put yourself out there, you won't go far wrong if you take all them tips on board as well. It really does work. There's almost like a basic fundamental of the stuff that you need to do. You need to do it, but then you can push it as much as you want or as little as you want. But you need to be visible to people. Like he said, and I absolutely love this, we are the tarts of LinkedIn. I just thought that was absolutely fantastic. So, you know, but that there again is proof that if you're out there and you're visible, people see you, people remember you, and it works. It definitely does work.
I echo that.
And you're pushing on an open door. You're pushing on an open door. People in companies realise the value that military personnel bring, be it service leavers in the process or veterans. There may be some veterans on here looking to join the railway industry, having already left. You are pushing on an open door. My company Story used me, I mean, in addition to my day job, used me to help attract servicemen and women into the business, because they see the value that they bring. They see all the personal qualities and skills that you bring, plus all the personal attributes and the work that you can do. So it's a target-rich environment, the rail industry.
Definitely. I think one of the things you touched on earlier was utilising LinkedIn. I'll tell you one of the things I did for LinkedIn. I knew I wanted to join the railway because I was inspired by a few friends of mine that were on it. but I didn't know where I belonged on the railway. And I'm guessing you guys might have figured the same thing, even going through your careers. So like, where do I see this going? And one of the things that I sort of did was I added people all over the industry, whether they were CEOs, whether they were cleaners, all across the board. And I asked for their advice, every single one of them. So a lot of the hard work on LinkedIn isn't just, you do a post and everyone jumps on it. Half the hard work is behind the scenes of you emailing all these people, HR directors, HR hiring managers. You go for a job and you titillate the CV to the key skills that they've got. And I'm not saying you blag it all, but what you can do is tailor your CV to that, take the keywords out of it, and then send it off to people to review. These people that you've made a network with, or the ex-forces. I utilised a project director at Balfour Beatty. He happened to be my old RCMO, so I utilised his advice. There was other people that my old major for a company. He ended up working as a project manager at TfL. So these sort of people that I utilised to kind of look over it, as well as the people that are already in the industry that had no military experience at all, because they're the ones that ultimately are probably going to be looking at with no, does this translate to Civvy Street well, and does it sell me well? Half the time you ain't going to get a response, but you will get a response from some people. So don't also fear failure that people won't respond to you. That's personally how I found it. 9 times out of 10 people will respond, but you will get that kind of like 10% that don't and will never respond. But that was one of the things I found to utilise LinkedIn well, is behind the scenes, and then people follow your journey after that. And even now, people still from the beginning of my journey are still with me and have become kind of mentors to me, or still provide opportunity for me to grow. And I also signpost people. So if people come into me and they ask me to look over the CV, I even edit it sometimes and go, I wouldn't use this, or I'd tailor this to this. And I think in the first year I got out, I was writing CVs a lot. I had to stop doing it in the end, but because it was like a full-time job. But I'd done about 38 CVs, I think, in the first year. Most of them are rail related, and most people that went for a rail interview got through to an interview. So I always said I can't promise you a job, but I know the record of how to write a CV is pretty good. So definitely try and utilize the job spec that you're going for. That's what I'm trying to say. That's the one, is use the job spec. Don't bluff your skills, but try and really think about the skills that they're asking for. Look at it and go, do I have that skill in any form? How do I experience that? For example, what I was trying to say earlier is it said engineering skills. Well, I didn't have engineering skills on paper, but I utilized them like multiple weapon systems, strip and assemble, and adhering to COSH with oils and multiple different terrains, reporting processes to the store. So you can kind of utilize those things, and strip assembling, functions testing. It's all relevant, and it's how you sell that to people on your interview panel, if you like, that you're going for the job for, and how you sell that and how confident you are in what you're saying. So that's what I said. Don't lie about what you've done, but maybe massage how good that sounds. To try.
I totally support you on that. I mean, no one likes a Walter, and because then you'll get found out in the end. So don't overcook it. What's on your CV is your life. So don't bluff it. But you're entirely rightly. You just need to exploit everything you've done in the military. One of the things I did on my very first interview, actually, because I recognised there was gaps in terms of what the job description was and my CV, but they still invited me there, so there must have been something which was been attracting them. And I said at the end of it, if there's anything you're asking me to do, which I haven't got the experience of now, I will learn. I've learned everything today. I haven't got a great education, but if you give me the opportunity, if you teach, I things that to teach me, I'll learn.
Yeah. We do have a question. Just someone has posted a question here. Do you have any experience, or do you have any knowledge or experience in becoming a train driver? I mean, I don't personally have any experience of becoming a train driver, but I know a lot of people that do go for it or have gone for it at Southern/GTR, and they recruited quite a few people. Maybe a year, probably about a year ago now. I know there's about 250 drivers I think they tried recruiting for. So I know it's quite a long process. That's all I do know when they're applying for the roles. But I don't know if you guys could or potentially have a better one, maybe Freightliner or anything like that, or any signposts that we could point people in the direction of? I mean, I know some contacts maybe at GTR, so whoever's posted that, I think it says Neil. If you want to get in touch after, I can definitely signpost you onto someone in the southern region if that's where you are, or if any of you guys know anyone in your regions or old contacts.
The one thing I would say is the Transport for Wales is constructed. We've got the TIFW group and then the train operator. So I would have a look at TIFW Rail Limited and see what roles they have, because they have got trainee drivers still through that.
That's good. Simon, anyone you know?
Yeah. As a guy who's tried to trade a lot of feedback at the moment somewhere.
Thanks feedback on yours, Lee.
There are I think quite a few service people have the attributes that driving a 3,000-ton train or carrying 2,000 passengers requires the skill set that some of us have used or have been trained on in the military, and there's quite a high success rate because it's quite hard to become a train driver. The pay's good, but it's quite a hard process. But there are a lot of people who are applying to be a train driver at the moment, but I think once you're on the system and you're in the process of being recruited, then that's good, but it's getting on it. I know several train drivers who are ex-military. I don't know about their process of getting onto it. I don't really have any direct input to it. However, when you think of train driving, don't just go for the obvious like Avanti West Coast or LNER or Southern. Think of the freight operating companies as well. So GBR Rail Freight, Rail Operations Group, Direct Rail Services. So there are also as many freight operating companies as there are train operating companies.
I looked into becoming a train driver in my for about half an hour in my resettlement process, and then quickly decided it wasn't for me. But my understanding of it is that you get 2 attempts at the test to become a train driver, and if you don't get through the second test, that's it. Now, I am also aware that there's training courses that you can do to prepare yourself to go forward for these tests as well. So if you are serious and you want to get ahead of the game, I don't know who the providers are, but you can obviously go and you can either ask one of us, and I could look into it for you, or do your research on Google, and you can go and pay people and go and do like simulation tests and whatnot to get you to hone your skills in, to give yourself the best chance of passing it.
That would be a great. Sorry, Lou. That would be a great resettlement grant use or good enhanced learning credit thing. Actually, yeah.
Yeah, most definitely. I think like you said, Simon, it is quite intense, but you know, it's rewarding, and the pay is very handsome indeed. So yeah.
Can I point out as well, for people that are when you join the military and you try and transfer, it's a bit of a pain process. Just because you start somewhere in the railway doesn't mean you're finished there in the railway, or you're stuck into that route. For example, me coming into rolling stock, I've gone into project management. You know, I've gone from rolling stock train maintenance to project management for signalling. You know, you can make transfers, and that's the same as it's the same as trying to do train driver. If you're at top, for example, you might find these vacancies come up. And when I was at GTR for a year, I think after a year you can then apply to become a train driver. If a vacancy comes up, you can go onto their waiting list and do that. So that's the other thing as well, is that you can get your foot in the door on the railway and then assess your options, and you're not necessarily stuck in that one position. So I don't know if any of you guys have, you know, had the same sort of situation. I know people that started in one position and then ended up in a completely other, or you know, jumped. But yeah,
I've seen a few people change disciplines. So engineers, engineering background into project management, and vice versa, which you don't tend to do. But it's certainly not limited. What you often find is there's quite a few engineers out there which have project management sort of announced about them, so that's a lot more transferable. Whereas you don't tend to have project managers go into engineering. Once you've gone down that path so far, there's so much training behind you, you don't generally change. Is it one thing which may be worth picking up on? I don't know how many people on the call, certainly you four will be aware about the Armed Forces Covenant, and there's lots of companies out there which are signed up to it. So the one thing which I wasn't aware of when I left, and I'm not even sure whether the covenant was set up then, but for those who aren't aware, there's a lot of businesses out there which have actually signed up to the Armed Forces Covenant, and there's three types of awards: the bronze, silver, and gold. To be fair, and without doing it a misjustice, it's pretty easy to get bronze. There's not a great deal of things you've got to do it, but it's offering a certain amount of commitment. But actually, if you start to target those companies you're interested in, who have started to go for either bronze or certainly silver or indeed gold, they've actually changed quite a bit about their organisation to really cater for service leavers and veterans. If I could just, in a bit of a shameless plug, just tell you about what we've been doing at Transport for Wales. We've submitted our silver business case, which hopefully will come back with a positive later on this year. But in order to do that, we've looked at our leave, which is granted to our reservists, our service families, in terms of extending it. Those people who are serving in the cadet force, and again offering them some additional leave. We've entered into the guaranteed interview scheme for those people from underrepresented social groups, of which armed forces and service leavers are one of them. There's a whole host of other things we've done to try and make it more enticing to try and bring ex-military or service leavers or veterans, reservists into the organisation. So point is, look at those organisations, go on the government website, it lists out all the companies which are signed up to and what level they're at. Maybe even try targeting them, because if you can go on LinkedIn, you know, to coin Simon's phrase, exploit it for as much as you can. If you want to look at Balfour Beatty, for example, look at Balfour Beatty, Armed Forces Covenant or Armed Forces Champion, and just start to tap into those individuals.
Yeah, I agree with that. We have got another question so it says, I'm leaving the Royal Signals as a comms engineer. Are there any companies within the industry you could recommend reaching out to? I'd like to continue a career in telecoms. I mean, yeah, a lot of the infrastructure, sort of like your Siemens or Network Rail are prime examples. I think Atkins might be another one with Signals as well. Karl, you might have done quite a bit of work with these within a framework, but I know there's a lot of companies out there that definitely you should be reaching out to. I mean, can
the person who asked the question just let you know where he or she wants to base themselves, because then we could perhaps even target it down even more.
Yeah, if you can put that down.
There ought to be a link on here somewhere. We've got the login. There ought to be a link.
Glasgow, Edinburgh, so Scotland. Okay, yeah. So
Hitachi in Edinburgh.
Yeah, they've got one, haven't they? Yeah, Hitachi.
Scott Rail.
Siemens. Yeah, so it's the big telecoms company, and SSE Rail. It's obviously Southern Scottish Electricity Rail, but they have a rail business, and they are bidding for a huge telecoms contract called Project Outreach, which is basically the renewal of all of Network Rail's telecom assets. So SSE Rail, to that lady or gentleman who's asked the question, is one to target.
And then just following on from that, with Network Rail, you've got the S&T discipline, the signals and telecommunications discipline. And I would recommend reaching out to a lady called Leanne Wood, who heads up the engagement for Network Rail for getting veterans and service leavers and whatnot into Network Rail. Really strong connection to have with a national reach as well.
So the link I've just popped in there.
It's another area again with fantastic pay, isn't it, S&T?
Yeah, absolutely. The link I've just put in here is for a installation operative for Siemens up in Edinburgh. I don't know if these links are coming through okay, Lee and Lewis. I've had a couple of failed attempts for the train driver one, but hopefully these will be coming through. But again, whoever's asking the question, if you just reach out to any four of us, we can help point you in the right direction. But that was just very simply Seaman Rolls Edinburgh, and it came up with a list of jobs which are up there. But as Simon said, there's a couple of different avenues to consider. But for those who are still considering what their options are, there's lots of other companies out there. So the one link I'm just going to pop in there is for an organisation called Project Recce. They specialise in providing training into the construction sector. So jump on board with them. It's entirely free to you. It costs the companies who run the courses. But Loz Moore, who's ex lieutenant from memory from the Rifles, he set up that company, and they're running lots of courses every month. So please get in touch on that, because there's lots of skill sets. And again, from that, they're also pushing out to different parts of the industry as well, not just rail, but construction in general.
Any more questions from the floor that we could have while we've got a few minutes left? Or is there anything else that anyone wants to touch on with regards to what we've spoken about today, a little bit more detail potentially?
There's one point I'd like to pick up on. So as much as I said at the beginning, we're not very good at sort of bigging ourselves up. We're also really poor. We're asking for help, and honestly, it's one of the poorest traits we could all possibly have. Asking for help, although it might be a weakness in the military, on the outside, we're actually, as Simon picked up, regardless of rank, everyone's in the same boat and everyone's here to help you. If you just reach out to people respectfully and just ask them for some help, everyone will help you. When we mention there's organisations and charities, all of a sudden as soon as you hear the word charity, everyone thinks, oh, hang on a second, I'm screaming out for help to reach out to a charity. No, you're not. These organisations are out there and set up to help and guide people and offer them just a little bit of assistance to help with your transition from military into civilian life. So please don't be afraid to use any of these. They're there to help you. I'm going to pop a link in there in a second. I'm a trustee for a veterans charity called the Buchanan Trust. We've got a whole host of accommodation based in the Hereford area, so obviously, it's open to everyone across the country. For those people, it's really, if you've just left, planning to leave, or you've even been out of the army or any service, from 5, 7, 10 years, you can apply to use some of our accommodation. If you just need somewhere just to sort of regroup and just offer yourself just a bit of breathing space before you move into your next bit of accommodation, or you're moving somewhere else, please just give us a shout. That's what the accommodation is there for. And there's lots of some other organisations like that across the whole country. So please, they're there and they're formed to help and reach out to you guys.
Yeah, someone's just said who would offer to look at CVs for free. I mean, me personally, I do that. I'm happy to look over people's CVs and give feedback. I don't know if you guys on the panel are, or if you know good people to recommend. I mean, I never turn anyone away. I'd always offer my help if I can. So what I'd suggest anyone on the attendees list is, or watching, just get in touch with any of us and just get us on LinkedIn, send us a private message, and any sort of more detailed questions you want answering. If we don't know the answer, we can either signpost it to someone who's former ex-military and knows the process, or we can signpost it to someone that's a bit more of an SME in a subject or an area, whether it's HR or anywhere. So yeah, do get in touch with us. I think we might have another question on here. For some reason it's really small, so I've got to try and navigate it as well. Sorry, 2 seconds.
That question about the CV, they was asking about the name mentioned earlier. So it's John Stevenson.
Right, okay, with you.
Yeah. So John Stevenson from the Forces Transition Group, ex-Royal Signals RSM, got his own company, specialises in helping service leavers. He won't take a penny out of your pocket, and he'll open up the door for you and give you some real helpful advice. Between Lee and John, my CV was sorted. I didn't pay a penny and I got a job, so highly recommend both.
And that's John Stevenson, PH. I just think, he's just linked in with me on LinkedIn, obviously. John Stevenson, PHENSON.
Yeah.
Someone said, what I said, left the, sorry, 2 seconds. I'm looking at moving across the rail industry, having recently left the engineers and taken on a role with M&E engineering company as a logistics manager. Would you mind me reaching out for any contacts in the Swindon area? Does anyone have any contacts in the Swindon area?
Not me.
Yeah, quite possibly. Yeah. Well, sorry.
Amy have got an office in Amy are in Swindon, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. That's what I was thinking. Yeah, if whoever that is, yeah, look us up, send me a private message, and see what we can do for you.
Yeah, I'll have to think about that as well, because I'm sure I always find that you say no, and then you realise, oh no, I do know so and so, or yeah, I always find that. So yeah, again, just reach out to us individually, or yeah, after the call. I'm more than happy to have a think about who I know in the Swindon area. Off the top of my head, I can't think, but I'm sure there's someone on my list of contacts that are being in and around that way.
As part of the Lee, as you know, what we was talking about as part of the role that we were taking on with the Armed Forces engagement leads for young rail professionals, as we build a base of connections across the UK, we can start touching base with different organisations that are actively recruiting, so we know who's based where. So when you come to us and you say, for example, I want to get into project management, tell us where you're based, we'll be able to hone into them particular areas. So I already know, like, someone in the North East who's actively looking for 20 people at the moment to go and work for him. All this stuff's kind of in the pipeline and about to go live with me and Lee. So as we kind of get into it more and it progresses, when these questions come our way, we should have a lot more connections and directions we can point you in.
Yeah. We're basically creating a spider web of resources that we can signpost any of you to the relevant people in an area. So, for example, Swindon, you'd come to us and we'd be able to signpost you to someone in Swindon or a few companies in Swindon, so that you can kind of get the relevant information that you want for that area, for example, or what depots might be around in that area. Simon, did you want to say something?
Yeah, thank you. And it's just just made a note. If you're thinking of joining the reserve organisation from which branch of the military you're in, join the reserve the day that you leave the regular. It's a lot easier to join from one to the other, opposed to getting out and then trying to join. I tried to join the reserves when I left the army at first, and it was very hard. I had to reapply, did it all, did selection. But it's quite difficult. It's very difficult, but it's a lot easier if you transfer from regular to reserve on the very last day of your regular service. And then in the army, for example, there is a railway reservist organisation called 507 Specialist Team Royal Engineers. So you could perhaps dip your toe in with them as a reservist and have another career outside the rail industry, or you could join the rail industry and do reserve service with 507 STRE as well. So there's opportunities there, and obviously there's the same for the RAF and the Royal Navy. And companies who have signed the Armed Forces Covenant are welcoming of reservists and do allow you to take 2 weeks annual camp as part, in addition to your paid leave as well. So reserve service while we're in the rail industry is encouraged and welcomed.
Yeah, we should probably comment actually that today is actually Reserves Day. So as I'm sure everyone's aware on the call, it's Armed Forces Week. There's two full day events, and today's Reserves Day. We've got 4 current reservists in TFW, of which one of them is away on annual camp in Belize at the moment. Lucky bugger.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, I was going to touch on that. I can't remember what to say. Oh yeah. So also, just if any of these people are on the call or you're watching this back, this can be utilised in other industries as well. You know, for utilising key skills and transferable skills from another industry into an industry. So we will be doing more things on that. But also, if you're in rail, don't have a military background, equally come to us, because we can give you advice and tell you about military experiences and what that can offer you as a reservist whilst you stay in the industry, and you want to become a reservist as well, because you know, as full-time regulars, we know what the military life's like, so we can best point you in that direction as well and give you advice on what sort of career opportunities would be, or what that would lead to whilst you're in as a reservist as well as the railway. So like personal development, for example. I know reservists now. I think there's a lot more this day and age on the reservists, and they're more funded, aren't they? I think it's better funded now, especially personal development and getting away on exercise, and that is definitely a good thing that's attractive for people that want to join. But yeah, I mean, I'm conscious of time. We're 5 minutes over. I was worried we was going to go under time, but yeah, I'd like to obviously just extend that massive thank you to Karl and Simon for your time. And yeah, anyone that wants to sort of get in touch, our email addresses are there, or you can just reach out to any of us on LinkedIn. Yeah, I don't know if you guys have got any final words. Lewis?
I just echo what you said. Thanks, Karl and Simon. It's so powerful for service leavers to engage on these type of platforms. You know, we've all walked the resettlement path at different times. We've all got our own experiences, and if you start listening to more people, more experiences, seeing what you can collect from all of that, then it's going to put you in a strong position to not sleepwalk through your resettlement and have a successful transition. So all the best to you all, and if you want to reach out to me, you know where I am.
After you, Simon.
Me? Okay. Be selfish, exploit your networks, and network.
There's very little to build on there. Thank you for the opportunity for coming here today. If there's any questions, please reach out and ask us. That's what we're here for. That's why we've dedicated some time to do this. So don't be strangers, and just remember, everyone out on the outside is there to help you. They're not against you. So don't press that button and leave and be in a flap. You don't need to be.
Yeah, look forward to more events and other things from us, for Lewis and I. This is just the start. So yeah, make sure you follow us, and we'll definitely give advice where we can.
Thank you for inviting me, Lee and Lewis. Much appreciated. Thank you.
Thanks very much, guys. Cheers.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good evening.